Um, uh, it would be, like I said, for those, we had a couple just come in the door. Tell us where you're coming in from. Tell us if you would rather be able to talk to plants or animals. Yeah, so today, conversation is about communications, which I'd like to simplify and say is really about conversation. And it's really about how are we having conversations with the key stakeholders in our own communities. I'm going to go ahead and as you guys are trickling in, the last couple are coming in, let me go ahead and share my screen and bring up the deck, which of course you all will get a full copy of afterwards. So do me a favor, let's make sure we keep this chat active today because as I said, we are talking about communications. I came up with this secondary title about communications. I'm calling this a Marcom Made Easy. And the reason why I'm calling it Marcom Made Easy has everything to do with the fact that I think as busy volunteers, we absolutely have to create a little bit more ease in our life. And we want to talk about lots of different ways that you could do that. Largely, though, we're going to ask you pick one that makes the best sense to you. And Michelle, I think you are going to get the bonus points because you already talk to plants and animals. It's great to have somebody in the room who already has figured this all out. I think that's really critical for all of us. All right. Before we get started, a little quick quiz on dates. I have a feeling that some of you will be able to jump right in. However, let's just see how people are going. What is special about May 2nd? Anybody special about May 2nd? Go ahead, throw it in chat. Or Jenny, go ahead.
And
Yes.
chapter seal.
Absolutely. Yes, very good. That's coming up very quickly. If you have any questions, to post them right now in chat for Jennifer. She'll pick up on those questions and we'll make sure that we get back to you on that. What about May 15th?
Something for the treasurer, but we already did it, so I can't remember.
I totally love that. And congratulations, extra bonuses for your chapter. Yes, it is something. And all you have to do now is, yes, Jenny, very good. All you have to do now is, of course, make sure that you did also send something to Jennifer because it doesn't count. The IRS you may think is important, but in your life as a volunteer, Jennifer is more important. So let's just make sure we take care of that. Now, July 27th. July 27th.
Forum
Yes, something about forum.
luncheon?
Yes, oh my gosh. The president or the president designate from each chapter will have an invitation and is cordially invited to join for the forum luncheon. Watch your email for invite coming probably in June. But please, if you are president and you are intending to be in forum, already put that date noontime on your calendar for confirmation. If you are president and not going, please query your board and find out who would like to be there. And of course, coming soon to your calendar or area leader calls. So keep all of this in mind because the academy isn't a once a year event. It's actually a conversation that is continuing. All right. To cue up our conversation for today, I've got a couple of polls, and let me pull those polls up for you. Let's start with this question. If your chapter's marketing communication strategy were a movie genre, what would the genre be? Would your Marcom strategy be considered an action-packed thriller, fast-paced and exciting? Might it be a romantic comedy, engaging, charming with a few John? Oh my gosh, I should have put that one on. Mystery drama. you're figuring it out as you go, or sci-fi, innovative, and futuristic? Go ahead.
Peggy,
Can
I
you
don't
guys
see
get
the
in
poll.
can you go put the poll?
I don't see the poll.
You don't see the poll? I said it. Here.
There
Is that
you go.
Okay. Jennifer, you and I are a team.
Yes.
Okay.
I
And
like
I'm
the
sorry,
silent film,
but
though. The silent film is classic.
I know, and I'm so sorry. I should have put silent film on here. So if silent film is the right one, go ahead. Oh my gosh, a drawn out documentary. What about a comedy? Be real. Oh my Lord. All right, I'm gonna have to remember all of these and build out my thing a little bit more. I will say that I'm very pleased to see that some of you at least put it in a genre that I've given you. Let me share this with you. I've got a number of people have already participated and so many more in chat. It wouldn't win an Oscar. Oh, we've got to change that. Post All right. But at least quite a few of you said it would be a mystery drama. You're figuring it out as you go. So I think that let's see if today we can help. Go ahead, Jennifer. You gonna say something?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good. All right, so now I want to get a little more serious, if that's okay. And you know it is okay because I've said it is. Oops, sorry. Hang on one second. There we go. How do you define the difference between communications and marketing? I've given you a couple of choices here, including I'm just not sure. But how would you define the difference between communications and marketing? And anybody that picks not sure gets bonus points for being honest. Okay, this one's taken. I know as we get sometimes as we get a little more challenging in the polls, takes a little bit more time. So let me give it a couple of moments here. There's a couple of reasons why I asked this question. Okay, we're just about there. Slowing down. Well, I would say the cool thing is that there's a great number of you that are coming in with one answer in particular. I think it's slowed down. Let's go ahead and share the results. Many of you picked communications as messaging and marketing as selling. And that's a key point that I want us to understand. Some folks, there's a level of which you could say communications is internal and marketing is external, because you can think about communications as being internal to your community and marketing as being going broader. I can understand why we would say that. But the reality is communications can be internal and external, and marketing can be internal and external. And there are distinctions. They really aren't the same thing, because communications is really what I refer to as conversation or messaging. Marketing is this idea of selling a concept or a thought. In our chapters, both have a role. And in fact, the shorthand for saying this, for what we call our strategy, is often MarCom, and that puts marketing first. But I'm going to tell you that they both have a role. But if you are effectively communicating, if your strategy is based on communication and messaging, the marketing will come along. So just think a little bit about the fact that we need to have an ongoing conversation with our key stakeholders. And if indeed we're having a conversation and we allow that to lead our strategy, we're creating an engagement, we're creating a relationship. Absolutely. You sell classes to your members, which I'm guessing around partially why you're saying that is because if that may feel a bit more like internal, or that may be the focus. I want us to broaden it just a little bit. Let me ask one final for the moment, because we are talking about, and I should mention to you that the reason why we're having this conversation in our fourth and final installment of the Academy webinars is because in that last survey that we did, you all said you want to know more about how to plan around this strategy, right? So as we launch into talking about that, I'd love for you to tell me what you think is not essential in a communication and marketing plan. Gary, I love hearing that, and I know that there are a number of super users for Club Express that we have with us, and I bet they would all agree. So feel free, folks, to weigh in on that. As a matter of fact, as long as you're weighing in on that, if anybody has a a hot tip or the best thing you like about Club Express, put that in chat as well. So the options I gave you, of which are not essential, is includes these elements. Does the plan include messaging and branding? Does it include a content calendar? Should it have a reference to budget? Should it have this whole branding information about fonts and colors? Should it have policies for that guide your communications and marketing? Which of these elements are not essential to include in a communications and marketing plan? And the other question I'll ask while you're answering this, as we're getting more folks in here, is how many of you have a communications and marketing plan? If you have a communications and marketing plan, use your emojis or your reaction buttons, whichever works for you, or throw it in chat. If you have a plan that you are, Robin, I love it. If you have a plan that you are proud of, there we go. I love the reaction button. Thank you. If you have a plan that you're proud of, go ahead and offer maybe to attach that, if it will attach easily to the chat to share with everybody, or send it to Jennifer. I'm sure we could do that. All right. It's gotten quiet here, so let me go ahead and share the results. So I love that many of you got this right. A plan does not need to have your branding elements to it. The branding elements should be included in the communications and marketing policies, which also don't need and actually should not be in your marketing or communications plan. The communications and marketing policy is just a standalone document, but you absolutely have to have what are the clear messaging and overall branding options? What is the content calendar? What are the detailed budget for promotional efforts? Those are all part of your plan. So several of you are in the process of working on plans. So I do hope folks will go ahead and share those plans. So let's jump in and chat then a little bit about how do we put together the plan that's going to make a difference, and what are some of the strategies we can put into that plan. Now, I'm not going to show you a detailed plan. Everybody's plan is going to be slightly different. It's more about the fact that you're taking the time to say, how are we going to approach this? And you're putting some ideas down on paper. I'm going to get this part of the conversation started off by sort of the why we're doing this. And I love to pick from Lindbergh's quote. Now, she was an American writer and an aviator. And one of the things that I think is really cool about this is that our communications and marketing should really be about stimulating and energizing members. I know that we want to have goals like fill the seats in the classroom, But I want you to really think about the fact that if the basis of your marketing and communication strategy can be on this idea of how do I energize and get people excited about us, it allows you to think a little more creatively. Now, I will acknowledge at the beginning of this conversation that we are up against some challenges when we start talking about this. And let me test your knowledge a little bit. Using chat, what do you think is the average attention span? The average attention span. "30 seconds, Mike. If only." Gabriella's getting closer. No, John, no way, 3 minutes. No way, no. 15 seconds, 25 seconds. Seconds, I love that. You're right. Yeah, so right now, the average is 8 seconds. And that is shrinking. Back in 2000, there was about 12 seconds. So it's continuing to shrink. Yeah. So what do you think is the window? So we might get their attention for 8 seconds, but what do you think is the window from the time someone sees something that you've sent? Let's say, let's talk about the mobile device. You've sent an email or you've sent them a link. What do you think is the window to which somebody will make a decision to actually engage? In other words, they're going to go ahead and read that. They're going to go ahead and click through and wait for it to load. Yes. You guys are a lot closer on this one for sure. Yes, Jenny, attention grabber is essential because you guys are very close. You've got maybe up to 5, but probably closer to 3 seconds for a person who's going to look at it and then make the decision to do something. All right. Now, let's say you've got them to come through. How long do you think it takes them as they're looking at your item to say, this is worth moving on? Like, how do they form the opinion? Like, this is going to be worthwhile. They're going to spend 3 to 5 seconds, maybe, but how long do you think it takes them to form an opinion? This is a tougher question. Here, I'll help you out. Oh, there we go. 10 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 minute. So, Mike, your answer, let me see where your answer is now. Oh, Mike, you should have stayed with your original concept there. 15 milliseconds. Oh, Lordy, Lordy, Lordy. And you know what? Part of it's because of what percentage they'll even read. What percentage of, say, text on a web page would somebody read to make this opinion? Yes, Tanya, I think that's really the answer. And she's almost just on. Yes. Actually, Megan, good news. Even if your headline's not great, they say that folks will read about 28, probably in many cases closer to 20, but 20 to 28% of your copy they will scan. So what do we know from all of this? We know from all of this that we have to grab their attention. We got to make it easy to read. Making it scan so that things pop out will keep them on. One last thing I want to throw out to you, because this is a reason, perhaps a reason why you might want to go with something like a Club Express or something that's really time tested. You only have, people will only wait for about 3 seconds for something to load now. And 54% of your people will wait less than 3 seconds. So if it doesn't load and come up, if they can't get to where they want to go in 1 click, it's going to be a problem. Now, I laid out all the tough news on you, but let me just give you a couple of bright spots. First of all, podcast, audio files, that kind of a what people will say respite in the communications field is growing. Somewhere around 92% of adults in the United States say that they listen to a podcast, and they talk about it because it's something they can do alone, while they're walking, while they're riding, while they're multitasking. It's more of an intimate environment. And Spotify reported that 1 in 3 said they did podcasting because it was screenless. So I know, Tanya, I'm loving this. Yes, it's like, what? How do we deal with all of this? Well, I'm going to take us back to this notion of having a simplified communications marketing strategy that is clear, concise, and really taps into visual and audio. We can overcome any and all of this. So let's talk about what should go into the plan, because success begins with that. But I'm going to make sure that we remember that all of it begins with really having a very clear understanding of our audience. So your plan has to first begin by you identifying the audience and getting very, very clear on that. But here are 6 considerations for you in building a plan that will allow you to get past all of those challenges that we just talked about. Starts with the why, which allows you to stay focused, to streamline, and streamlining is ever so important, and to tailor your activities. More is not better. I know that there's all kinds of things in marketing that say you got to hit somebody 7 times or 10 times. It's not about a very complicated plan. It's about really what's going to make a difference and being very focused and streamlined. Your guys are busy, right? If we truly understand what we're doing, we can then tailor the message down for this particular audiences. So perhaps your overall plan might be drive member engagement. Perhaps you have a plan that's really focused on your education or your other events, and so it's to drive involvement in those. But be very clear about what you want to do, and don't overtax any of your communication plans. Once you know what you want to do, you want to define goals. You have to have clear, measurable goals, because otherwise we're throwing everything. It's like throwing everything at the wall and hoping something will stick. So, for example, in the Maryland chapter that I used to work with, we had a goal of wanting to drive member engagement. We did a benchmark which showed us that roughly 30% of our members did something with us over the course of the previous year. Our ultimate goal was to get into that 60% range. But in year 1, we said, we want to try lots of different kinds of things to see where people are interested in engaging. So we're going to do some testing and some piloting. So our communications marketing plan goal was to move the needle, get beyond 30% for the current year. We did, and the following year, we actually achieved our 60% goal. But the communications and marketing plan was around how do we use communications and marketing to help people navigate the organization. Only when you've done that work do you say, okay, what is the messaging? How am I going to, how do I use this communications and marketing strategy to, how am I using the messaging to drive that strategy? You want to think about the voice, and I want you to think about the voice in terms of warm, friendly, authentic. You want to think about the messaging, and I want you to really think to yourself, how do I have just 2 or 3 core messages or themes maybe that capture your chapter's identity? And the third thing you're going to think about is, what are those consistent colors and designs that I want to use? One of the things that I've seen chapters who consistently sell their events and activities do is they have templates, and they get very it looks the same. So when a busy member is coming through and they see this, they know, ah, that's going to be an educational event. Ah, that's going to be a social event. You don't have to recreate a bazillion times. You can really benefit by saying, this is how we're going to brand or market and create some real clear identity around the different messages. But crafting that messaging and getting those core themes down will really support. Now, this is where AI comes in, right? So for example, let's say that you've got a message that you're sending out and you're going, well, I need to make sure that this is warm, friendly, and authentic. Throw it into ChatGPT and say, give me a scale. On a scale of 1 to 5, would you call this message warm? Would you call it friendly? Would you call it authentic? Do that first, because that begins to teach you to recognize when you are scoring, right? Then say, okay, now help me make it warm or friendly or authentic, wherever you didn't do well on. A great way of dealing with this is to take a message. Maybe you write 2 or 3. Yes, Tanya, authenticity is critical. Take 2 messages, send them out to a couple of your buddies and say, hey, which one connected with you and why? When you get a message that scores, use that in the prompt for future messages. So let's say you did something for an education program and it really drew, you sold out. Now, it's not just the messaging, but you know the message got a lot of click-throughs. So the next event you're getting ready, take that message, throw it into ChatGPT and say, look, this message got a lot of clicks. I need to now do this similar thing, but for this event. Build on your success, right? The next element is to build your basic calendar. I'm going to show you a couple of examples in just a moment, so we'll keep moving on here. But I want you to really think about how the calendar plays a real good role in keeping you on target. I want you to think about your channels. I was just talking with, I have a social media support, a contractor, and I was just talking with this person actually earlier today. And we were talking about, for a particular element that we're working on at Mariner, was channels. And we did some analysis. And really, the only channel I needed to play with really is LinkedIn. So I'm not gonna go way out on a bunch of other limbs. I'm gonna say, how do I use LinkedIn? And the last thing, and we don't always do this, is and what I refer to as engage, evaluate, and evolve. And what I mean by that is to test the elements, send things out, as I mentioned, to some friends, check it, see how the click-throughs are how the opens are working, how many of this X, Y, or thing was shared, how many questions, you sent an email out, how many questions did you get back that were things you thought were already clear in that email? Make regular plans for doing this. Do a monthly or a quarterly check-in to see what's working, what's not working, and evolve is simply to say, stay flexible. Let me pause for a minute. I see that Tanya made sort of elevated the idea of authentic messaging was important. What else in these 6 steps is clarifying to you, is confusing to you, or something that you would give a thumbs up? Yes. Allowing time to plan ahead. Absolutely. Love that. What else is present to you? And when you look at this checklist, if you will, for creating a marketing communications plan? So I love it. So Ginny's putting in some really good tips here. So this notion of when you're building your plan, build out not just the sales parts of it, but as she's suggesting here, build in the messaging that's going to help make sure people stay focused on what they've signed up for, right? Or give them an opportunity to sign up for it. So how do you think not only of, and this is important to put this in the plan, otherwise it gets dropped or it becomes an add-on that wasn't part of somebody's time allotment that they scheduled to do something, but put in all of those important extra states that create the conversation, the give and take, that create the sense that there's a little bit of urgency here. Yes, it is iterative. No plan is set in stone. The reason why we have we can copy and replace, and the reason why we can delete, and the reason why we can type over are all because we can change. Yeah, thank you, Robin. I think that's to me that's really been helpful as I've refined my approach to marketing communications. Tanya, yes, and we're going to talk about the calendar and the content calendar. It needs to be relevant, which means you don't necessarily start a plan that you write for January to December and you set the course for everything for the full year. Some of this is, we know we're going to put something out in these channels in March. Well, March is not a good time because that's procurement month. You should know that in January. Let's say July, but it's like having the space to be able to have what is current or relevant. Excellent. All right. Let's talk about calendars, because what calendars do is they organize you, they focus you, they help you avoid last minute, which we just mentioned. And here's the one that people don't always view, which I think is really important, is it allows more people to be involved in the process. So one of the things that I did with my Maryland chapter, and something that we do here at Mariner, is everybody has access to our calendar. And I'm going to show you a content calendar too, and our content calendar. We use an Excel sheet. You could use a Google Calendar or a Google Sheet. You could use a social management tool like Buffer, which is free, or Hootsuite. You could use a management tool like Trello, which has a free version. Any of these allow multiple collaborators. And the beauty of multiple collaborators is it enriches the plan, and it also creates ownership, shared ownership, and it also allows you to delegate duties. Let me say that again. You can delegate duties when you have people putting in and being part of it. So I think it's really, really important. Calendar of events. Yes, I love it. So let me show you a couple of calendars. There's the traditional 12-month calendar. The 12-month calendar that we use has a couple of points to it. It starts with the story or the theme for each month. Oftentimes we try to coordinate or connect our 12-month calendar by where things are happening. So this could be where, and it connects with the key dates. This could be where you have a certain event or a certain activity. You have National Procurement Month. You have National Volunteer Week. You've got a theme or something that is something you know that's going to happen in that month. And then what are the key dates? And then this is where you say, and where would I put these elements? You know, what are going to be the channels that I'm going to use? Not everything needs a press release. Some of it does. Not everything needs an email or an e-letter, but some of it does. I also have an other column. In my other column, this is where I add additional communication opportunities that we could connect to. This is where you might say, piggyback on NIGP, or there's a community event that we could be involved in, or there's a way to do joint communications with a vendor, a supplier, or a sister organization. This is where you have an opportunity to be able to say, here are some additional things if we have the opportunity to do that. I love that. And this is where I put in links and sources. And the beautiful part about the links and sources is going to come up a few minutes and just a little bit when we talk about the rule of 3. But not everything that we do has to be done by us, right? And so sometimes these links and these sources can allow you to leverage what is going on. Now, in addition to the 12-month calendar, we have a content calendar. Now, the content calendar is a little bit different. You may choose to have simply a content calendar, or you could have a more detailed by the each month. However you want to do that. The content calendar is very valuable for you to make sure that you're getting variety in your communication channels. You may choose to organize the content calendar, say by an event or a topic, however it works for you. Essentially, as you can see in this particular one, you might start with a topic that's happening. Say, for example, I don't know, National Procurement Week. And you could say, we're going to put this, the key audiences are going to be X, Y, and Z. It could be people outside your chapter. It could be members. It could be the employers of members, right? We're going to have a call to action. In almost all these cases, you want to identify the call to action, so you know. We're going to list channels and key dates, and we're going to actually list links, visuals, and resources. Now, the important reason why I want you to list links, visuals, and resources, it comes back to that making this a collaborative tool so anybody can access and use it. So the content calendar at the beginning of the year, you sit down and you say, where are there events, activities, or topics that we want to talk about and communicate over the course of the year? How do we shape up what we need for each of those in advance? And how do we do this on an Excel spreadsheet or a Trello board so that people can come in and add? They can also come in and use this information. The third type of resource, if you want, is what I call the story bank. I don't know how many of you have a story bank, but I have found that it's really valuable for me to be able to, for when I have a downtime, when something didn't work, I didn't have content for this month, for me to be able to go in and grab stuff. So my story bank is an opportunity for me to capture ideas as they appear. It allows me to do note updates. So for example, let's say in Maryland, our legislative season is the 90 days starting in January. But leading up to that, there may be stories, like for example, the bottle bill was really big. So the question was, we were watching, there were webinars, there were other resources, and there were some interesting story themes, right? So we put them in there and then connected them to what might be useful during the legislative session. And then we updated those. And this has a lot to do, there's a connection here to following the legislation. But there's also stories from the community that come up from time to time. And then there is tie-in to special celebrations. So the example I'm showing you right here is your the tie-in to celebration for National Procurement Month, for example. Someone could say, well, wow, I think we should cover this. I have an idea for a blog. I have an idea for an e-letter. In this particular case, I'm showing you the actually the link to the media kit from NIGP for the current year, which gives you some examples of how you can use that. So the whole point to the story bank is when you have when you have a time when maybe you need content, you can jump in. When you are planning to do something, you can find an update to how to handle that in the story bank. Maybe someone, you just want to get new people involved, someone can submit ideas to the story bank. Great way to tap new members who might have a story from their own, say, procurement office. Great way to tap vendors who might have a story they want to share. You're creating a story bank that allows you to have content to leverage. So a couple of things are coming in. Jenny, thank you for sharing many of these elements about Club Express. And I recommend that you all continue, check in what she's talking about. I think it's really valuable, as she said, to have sample email templates. Creating any and all of those templates will allow you to leverage in the moment opportunities. Excellent. So when you think about all of these elements, I don't want any of these plans to feel overwhelming. And so if we take a step back, in order for you to just keep afloat, put your plan in place, allow a great deal of flexibility, and make sure that you are thinking about content beyond your organization to make it as easy as possible. Let me pause because I want to now talk about some examples of how we can maybe rethink about those last 2 points. Questions, observations, thoughts? Yes, the new member spotlights. I love that.
I like that we could borrow or copy another chapter's ideas.
Yes.
We're our procurement professionals. We always do that. So that's one. A question more on, yes, it's a great plan to have 12 months, but like my chapter, we do annual elections. So we keep saying every year we're going to plan way ahead and then it falls through and then we play catch up and here we are, Q2. So here we are, we're planning for the rest of the year. So give yourself grace that you may, if you don't get it completed, the year prior, that probably Q2 is more reasonable to start for the balance of that year. And maybe that can go all the way through first quarter of the following year. That would be your 12 month.
Yeah, and actually, and I'm gonna expand that and say, if you do it, if the first time you do an 18-month calendar, you never get behind again. Because you're always ahead. So, but the other thing I want to say also, just to your point, is, when you look at the content calendar concept in the story bank, you can do those have a shorter lead. So like if you don't get a full 12 month, but something's coming up next quarter, then do it for that thing that's coming up next quarter, which I think is what you're basically saying, Ginny, is give yourself grace and take one of these. Maybe it's the story bank you start with. We just want to have a good maybe at your next board meeting, you say, folks, let's just talk about what are the stories that we have in our chapter. Let's just create a story bank. Any of these things are going to get you on the road towards creating an ongoing communications and strategy so that it's not a silent film, right? So.
Yeah, I like the repurpose content because that's the thing. It's like a lot of stuff are the first time. So you're setting the bar and then you're going to repurpose it to either A, it worked, or make it better. Exactly. But you already have the foundation. So that's something we're doing in Club Express for sure. Perfect.
And I think I think it's so important that we not think that we have to generate everything. I mean, in my opinion, there's 3 ways of thinking about your communication strategy. Stuff you have to originate, stuff you can get help with by AI or connecting with someone else, and the stuff that you've already done that can be reused. And I learned this actually from, I have a person that I follow, Kiki, who is the nonprofit guide, the nonprofitmarketingguide.com. She does a nonprofit editorial calendar FAQs. One of the things that she's done, Kiwi has done, is she's given us a couple of rules to follow. The rule right now that I'm showing is her rule number 3, which is three types of formats: long form, short form, and visual form. Now, what I love about this is her rule number 5 is everything should be in at least 3 channels. So you could pick something, you could pick a long form, a short form, and a visual form. You have one story, and you're able to actually be able to put these out in 3 different channels, in 3 different formats, and be able to keep a conversation going much longer. A classic example of this comes from her rule number 2, which is deconstruct big ideas into 3 smaller chunks. Let's say you've had, I'm going to use charity event just for the yucks of it, because many of us have a fundraiser event or some kind of an event where we're looking at raising monies for scholarships or this or that. So 3 smaller chunks. There's a long form, which might be the full newsletter article about this event, right? But you also have 3 chunks. How much was raised and what are you going to do with it? You have photo gallery, and you have highlights and quotes. So if you take that long form and you take a look at, say, how much was raised and what to do with it, you could very easily have a infographic, right? The highlights and quotes could become a set of Instagram posts, right? Photos with captions. So what we're saying is go ahead and every particular event or activity, think of this set of rules of 3s, right? Which is, I've got an event, I've got an activity, I've got a message. How can I do this in a long form, a short form, and a visual form? How can I take this story and chunk it into 3 different chunks of information? And then how can I use 3 different channels? The last rule of 3rd that I want to share with you is actually her rule number 1, which is the editorial calendar rule of 3rds, which is 1/3 of your content is original, 1/3 is repurposed from something you've done in the past, and 1/3 is something new. And that something new, if it doesn't come up, go back to repurposed content because you can do this. So you're getting ready to promote your lead into your big conference, right? You can go back to content from the previous, right? You can show up then and now. Last year's theme takes on a new theme this year, right? You can take the highlights of last year's that you used in your blog post and say the top 3 things that were takeaways are here. What are the takeaways going to be for the new year, right? You could even take any of those blog posts and bring them back around again to reshare them and update them. So think of maybe the rule of 3. We'll send out a link. You can see the link on this slide to get in and read more about it. I love her approach. She understands we have to work in spaces where we have limited money and limited time. So it's always about repurposing is one of her guiding philosophies. All right. Yes, generating from scratch is a lot of extra work and we don't need to. We do not need to. As a matter of fact, speaking of the new member spotlights, if many of you are doing this in different parts of the country, wouldn't it be fun? Let's say if I'm in the Maryland chapter and I see that there's been something written by the Loveland, the Colorado chapter, and Copper, I think it is, right? And then it's a cool little story about how someone did something. I can say, hey, from around the NIGP world, here comes a story from so-and-so from the Copper chapter, right? You got something right there that came from someone else. But Maryland, if you do that, just make sure at some point you do one of your own so the Copper can steal it from you. All right. Now I got ideas. I bet you've got ideas too, right? Are you sure? I mean, I know you have ideas. So here's where I'm going to have you weigh in. We are going to create the top 10 list of ideas from you all. I'm going to put another poll on, and I'm going to give this poll some time. This is a short word answer poll. And Jennifer and I are going to take the results of this, and we're going to, at the end, we're going to give you the top 10 of cool ideas. So what is your favorite marketing communications tip? You're going to go ahead and respond to this, and we're going to collect the responses. And I see people are already coming in. Beautiful, awesome. I'm going to keep this open. And the idea here is, folks, is that there's really aren't a lot of quote unquote new ideas, but there are a lot of tried and true. And that repurposing notion, something that worked for someone over here, shifted and changed a little bit, could easily work over here. Jennifer, we already have 12 responses.
Love it. Love it. No,
Keep it
14.
coming.
14.
Keep it coming. I'm going to share a couple of ideas in just a moment, but I'd love to make sure that you all have a chance to do this. So while you're doing this, I'm going to have you multitask. Is that okay? The answer is yes, Peggy. It is okay. All right. I want you in chat, while you're sharing your favorite marketing and communications tip, in chat, I want you to share your favorite marketing or communications message or tip, or message you got from your favorite brand. In other words, it's always good for us to learn from brands. If something attracts your eye, it could be that it could be something you could use. So I love doing that. I am a crazy reader of emails that come in. Why? Because I want to know. Yes, there we go, Tanya. Where's the beef? I mean, that's a question, right? And people to think about it, right? Catchy tune, absolutely. So do you put catchy tunes on with your videos? Humor. Yes, I'm big on humor. I love humor in ads. Anything else? What have you seen in your favorite brand? Now, I used to be, I mean, I'm going to say Southwest is no longer my favorite brand, but I love the fact that they would always lead with what was free. Like, and it used to say always. Of course, now we know their brand doesn't do that anymore. You had me at hello. Yes. Just do it. The theme. Yeah. How are we doing on our poll, our untitled poll 3?
23 and growing.
Okay. Intriguing visuals. Yes, visuals capture eyes. All right, I'm going to leave this poll open. You guys can, I'm going to want to continue our conversation here. So one of the things I did for you was I went out and I talked to as many different people as I could and asked them, and then I threw some ideas into Copilot just to see if I could get some additional versions of ideas. And I have come up with what I'm going to refer to as 6 strategy buckets. See if any of these resonate with you. The first is this idea of leveraging micro moments. I mean, where can you come up with quick wins, like a quick win member spotlights, a short post or an email highlighting member success that you just heard about. Maybe it's an event countdown graphic, right? Just a post, a simple visual countdown on social media to remind members about something that's coming. Maybe it's a quick poll. If you've seen on LinkedIn, you can do polling, right? Yes, get celebrity endorsements. I love it. Are there micro moments of communications that instead of a big complex campaign, you can get people involved or engaged with your communications? The second is, can we turn members into our marketing advocates, right? So here I'm talking about create pre-written social media blurbs as an example, so that people know how to go ahead and connect, know how to promote your events or your activities. Maybe you get people who are really excited about a particular event or a program or an activity. Maybe there's a, your student scholarship, for example, and you get them to be the social media ambassador to post on a regular basis. Maybe you're having a webinar and you have a chat captain, someone who is going to make sure that when people comment that they engage with that particular comment to have conversation. Maybe you have social media badges, right? And tag people and shout outs. How can you, under this idea of using communications that are not always original, how can you bring members into that process? Sorry, Bethany, you will get the recording, of course. How about not your standard email? What about an email that starts with behind the curtain or behind the scenes, and it talks a little bit about, you're not selling the event, you're just talking about something that interesting about the behind the scenes. Like maybe, for example, if you get session proposals, you might say behind the scenes, here's a snapshot of the committee taking a look at them. Did you know we got 542 RFPs for 60 sessions? What about an email that goes out that just says, Jennifer tried this and it worked. Mini stories from members. There's no other reason for it. It's just a mini story. Maybe have you seen in Facebook every now and then it'll come up, it'll say then and now, and you put in today's photo. You could do a then and now. Maybe you take an email that just simply talks about what happened the previous year, or perhaps you do a very simple mini challenge like, hey, in one word, what's the hot topic for you this month in the office? And they do one word of reply, and then you take that and you put that into a word cloud. How about we do simple video and audio strategies? Here's one that I learned from a chapter. They would do Ask a Leader, and they would go out. The way they got it started was they came up with a question. They called somebody up. They permission to record. They recorded the answer the leader gave. They then sent that out on social, and they said, what question do you have for a leader? And then they took that question and they called up another leader. They were just simply doing an Ask a Leader, and they were 30, 60-second phone calls that they recorded and then shared. Same thing, podcast light. Rather than doing another, picture or an ad, can you do simply a short recorded voice memo? WhatsApp is a great way of doing this. How about new uses for old content? Remember when, photo recap, best of, content lists, then and now. And finally, this idea of exchanging posts with local groups, with other groups, or piggyback on supplier news. There's lots of resources in the chapter's marketing toolkit that can help you make all of these connections. So with luck, you'll be able to go and find some of those. And one of the things you'll find, of course, are the answers to our poll.
Somebody's watching me.
I'm going to put all of these together in an example from back in, Jennifer, what did we say? Was it 2021?
2021.
Yeah. Dustin came on and he said, and he gave us his rule of 10 for marketing. He said, start with a Zoom interview with a cool member. Then you're going to archive. You can archive it or you can have a live video. You create a blog post. Now he suggested the best way to do the blog post, was having the interview using Otter AI, but you can also do just if you do Zoom, you can use the Zoom meeting notes. But the blog post is easier to write when you have a good transcript. Then you would turn that into a longer newsletter article. He recommended using a software app called VideoCycle, VIDEOCICLE. Take a screen grab, as I did with this Zoom interview, and share a tidbit with it. Go ahead and then pick something up from that interview and pull it out to do a single topic video, which you can do with Descript, DESCRIPT. You could take this whole Zoom interview, throw it into Designer.io, or actually Perplexity. There's a number of AI platforms, and you will have an ebook. Take some of this information from this person, create an infographic. You could even turn an image of this into a fun graphic, kind of like a meme, right? And finally, you can add it to your FAQ page where you might have something that said, what are members saying about us? Or what are members saying about this topic? And you'd have it. So in other words, if you could invest, say, 30 minutes on a Zoom interview with a member, you could then turn that in, that becomes your first piece. You could turn that in to 9 additional content pieces that'll take you all the way to 10. Jennifer has put in one link for the marketing toolkit. We will send to you a link to be able to take a look at Dustin's resources and his rule of 10. So from the concept of repurposing or chunking, or just this notion of taking a story and using it many different ways, you've got a whole bunch of options right here. We are coming up on the end of our end of our conversation. Let me summarize a few things and then check out to see what else is on your mind. I'm going to suggest that just keep it real, keep it short, keep it achievable. Use all the possible available templates from NIGP, from AI, from a number of those software platforms. Canva's got templates for videos, for Instagram posts, for an amazing number of things, right? And finally, celebrate every small win. Because we're not marketing gurus here, and we're not going to get huge things done, but we're going to get a whole bunch of powerful small things done, which I think is just absolutely critical. All right, let me pause. I've got one more slide for you, but I'd love to pause for the moment and see what's going on in your mind when we talk about Marcom. What's the question or the challenge that you have? How can we really turn this conversation into something that will support you? Any thoughts? Okay, good. And Winnie, Winnie, Jenny, you have been obviously filling the chat with great advice too. So you've got our wheels churning. So thank you. All right, did I overwhelm people?
I love
So
the
I
word strategies. I think those are great.
Good, good, good.
I'll share that with my committee.
Excellent, excellent. And Michelle, I mean, I just want to send you hearts and hugs. I know it's about dedicating the time to set it up and then being really realistic. And one of the things we did, once we did the content calendar, wow, we were able to empower a bunch of what we called our social media pool, people who would just support our communications. So I know it's tough. Get it set up, steal these templates, steal them, and then create your own. Any tips on convincing people to appear on video? That's, you know what? Sometimes the best way to do this is to shoot it at an event if you can, because they're dressed up and they're ready for it and they're in the mood and they've got a lot of energy around them. The good news, bad news is that, you know, you're sort of limited to who shows up at the event. That's sort of the challenge. And sometimes there are other faces and voices you want. But I do know that once you get it started, once you go to an event and activity, people are kind of ready for it. But the second thing is what I have done is and I've been on a number of where they did the same thing where it's a podcast and they asked me to be on video. And then they say to me that reason why they're going to put them on video is because they're only going to use one little bit of the short, and the rest of the time, even though I'm on video, they're going to take the best part of my video rather. So telling people that it's not about the whole video, it's about the clip. Sometimes that makes people feel a little bit better. I think the other thing is a lot of people don't want to be on video because they don't like the way they look. And, you know, I think probably the best way to do that is to chat with someone and say, and, you know, and teach them how to use the blur, teach them how to use different aspects of the video. Different aspects to get the best video. And again, this is the other reason why it's valuable to do it at an event, because you can give them a backdrop that they don't have to fuss with. You can get the lighting better.
Peggy, can I give another tip for this?
Mhm.
I was asked to be on a video and I was paranoid, did not something I wanted to do. But what worked for me is I was given plenty of heads up. It wasn't something that was sprung on me. And I was given somewhat of an outline of what they wanted me to cover. So that way I could pre-work and frame that I need to talk about this concept, or I need to talk about this moment. And that helped me feel a little bit more prepared than thinking I was going to talk off the cuff, or you were going to throw questions at me that I didn't think I had answers to. So as much as you can prep and get people ready for that content, I think helps them feel better about it as well.
Oh, yes. Excellent. Yes. I mean, it's really useful. Okay. I'm going to shift to our final slide, and it's actually a QR code to my Menti, because this is the close of this year's Academy. I'm not sure how many of you are really aware of that. The Academy always starts in January and it closes at 2 months after. That's our general rhythm. So it's really about January to April, which pulls us to a close for this year's Academy. Gee, Jennifer, do you think you'll invite me back next year?
I think I'll invite you back next year and we'll have 6 webinars instead of 4.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like fun, but when is the central event?
The event is, drum roll, it is February 20 through 22 in Tucson, Arizona. So we already have our dates and our time and location. Registration will start late summer, early fall, so watch for that. So start budgeting, talking to your board, who you want to send next year. So we're already ready. Peggy and I have actually already started brainstorming about what next year will look like. And part of that is that extension of having some more of these webinars that can kind of continues these conversations of little nuggets and very specific subject matters to go a little longer. We might even do some more pre-ones. We may do them as early as November, December before as new officers come in. So just watch for that registration email to come out.
Excellent. So I'm already watching the word cloud grow. So I am going to go ahead and stop this share and share the word cloud. Oops. Hang on a second. Let me share the word cloud. There
These
you
are
go.
one of my favorite things to see. I love the visual of it.
There you go. Look at this. Excellent. Keep it coming. The QR code is still showing if you still needed the QR code. This has been, I think, a really exciting academy. We did a lot of things differently this year, and hopefully it has been useful for you. And so spread the news. Make sure you get your budget set to make sure that we can come back. But enlightening, engaging, exciting, beneficial, awesome, energetic, insightful, jam-packed. I love jam-packed. I mean, I hope it wasn't overwhelming, but we do love jam-packed. So,
And Peggy, if I can add one thing too, while this is our last webinar, this is not our last engagement together as leaders. We are going to have our leader calls. We're going to have other webinars that will be popping up. We're working on some short videos and some other things to continue to engage us as a group. So it's not a one and done. It's not over today and we won't talk to you for months. It's not how it's going to work. So it's the end of the Academy tagline, headline, if you will, but we will still keep engaging you all every month, every other month, so we don't lose this connection and this drive and motivation that we have right now.
excellent. Well, folks, this draws to a close our event and activity today. Please, I've got the poll going, and Jennifer, were you able to capture the back end of that poll?
I believe so. I have not looked at that yet, but yes, I should have. I have not been able to see the results, but I see that they are coming in.
Okay, excellent. All right. Well, this is the first time we have done a single word poll, so we hopefully first time we've done a short answer poll, so we hope that we'll be able to share those responses back to you. Will get everything else that we showed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hey, it's a wrap.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Appreciate you. Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you.
Have a great summer.
Talk to you
Yeah.
all soon.
See
Watch
you in
for our
Denver.
leader calls.
My total care of
Thank
change
you.
or impact.
Jennifer, stay on, okay?
Okay.